The man slouched in seat 22C looked like life had chewed him up and spit him out. His jacket was creased, the kind of wrinkles that scream sleepless nights and endless worries. His shoes, once polished, were scuffed and worn, the soles whispering tales of too many miles. A little girl, no older than 6, curled against his shoulder, her tiny hand clutching a teddy bear so faded it barely resembled the animal it once was. Her soft snores were the only sound breaking the hum of the airplane cabin. A few passengers nearby exchanged glances, their raised eyebrows and hushed whispers dripping with judgment. "Some people can't even bother to look decent," one muttered, adjusting her designer scarf. Another smirked, eyeing the man's rumpled attire like it was a personal offense. The flight attendant, all practiced smiles and crisp uniform, leaned down. "Sir, could you please move your bag from the aisle?" Her tone was polite but carried that edge of impatience. The man startled, his tired eyes blinking as he reached for the worn duffel at his feet. In his haste, a small lunchbox tumbled out, hitting the floor with a soft thud. A cartoon sticker on it, peeling at the edges, proudly declared, "World's Best Dad." A ripple of laughter spread through the nearby rows. The man's face flushed a deep crimson, but he didn't snap back, didn't defend himself. He just tucked the lunchbox away, his hands trembling slightly, and pulled his daughter a little closer. No one in that cabin could have known who he was. Not the woman with the scarf, not the businessman scrolling through his emails, not even the flight attendant who'd already moved on to the next task. They didn't know that the exhausted man in 22C was once Captain Daniel Hayes, a name that echoed through Air Force squadrons like a legend carved in steel. Call sign, Falcon 27. A decorated pilot who had flown missions that most could only imagine in blockbuster movies. He'd pulled off impossible maneuvers, saved countless lives, and earned medals that now sat in a dusty box somewhere. But when his wife passed, leaving him and his daughter, Lily, to face the world alone, he'd traded his wings for a different kind of mission. Raising her. Every sleepless night, every scuffed shoe, every wrinkle in his jacket, it was all for her. The plane droned on, cutting through the night sky at 30,000 feet. Most passengers were lost in their own worlds, headphones on, screens glowing, or dozing under thin airline blankets. Then, a sharp jolt. The cabin shook, glasses clinking in the galley, overhead bins rattling. Turbulence, the kind that makes your stomach lurch. A few nervous laughs broke the tension, but it didn't last. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom, steady but urgent. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. We've entered restricted airspace and have been contacted by military authorities. If there's anyone on board with military experience, please press your call button now." A murmur rippled through the cabin. Heads turned, eyes scanning. A few call buttons lit up, here and there, scattered across the plane. An older man in a worn veteran's cap. A young woman in row 12 who'd served a tour overseas. But the man in 22C didn't move. He sat still, his daughter's head nestled against him, her teddy bear tucked under her chin. He stared at the seat back in front of him, his jaw tight, like he was fighting a war within himself. The intercom crackled again, the captain's voice sharper now. "We have a specific request. We need a former Air Force pilot. It's urgent. If you're out there, please identify yourself. We need to establish communication immediately." The cabin fell silent, the kind of silence that presses against your eardrums. Every passenger seemed to hold their breath, waiting. The woman with the scarf glanced around, her lips pursed. The businessman stopped typing, his eyes darting toward the call buttons. The flight attendant stood frozen, her hands clasped tightly. Daniel's hand hovered over the call button. He looked down at Lily, her small chest rising and falling with each breath. He kissed her forehead, so gently it was like he was afraid to wake her, and then pressed the button. The soft ding echoed like a gunshot in the tense cabin. Heads whipped toward 22C. The woman with the scarf raised an eyebrow, skeptical. The businessman leaned forward, curious. The flight attendant hurried over, her eyes wide with a mix of hope and disbelief. "Sir," she said, her voice low but urgent, "the captain needs you in the cockpit. They're asking for your call sign." She handed him a satellite phone, its weight heavy in his hand. Daniel hesitated, his fingers tightening around the receiver. He glanced at Lily, then leaned forward and spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "This is Falcon 27. The words hit like a thunderclap. The flight attendant's eyes widened, and she rushed back to the cockpit. On the other end of the line, the military officers on the ground erupted into action. Falcon 27. The name was a legend, a story told in hushed tones over beers in airbase hangars. The man who'd led a rescue mission so daring it was studied in military academies. A pilot who'd flown through hell and brought his team back alive. The passengers didn't know it yet, but the man they'd mocked, the man they'd judged for his wrinkled clothes and scuffed shoes, was a hero who'd once held the sky in his hands. Minutes later, the captain emerged from the cockpit, his face pale but resolute. He took the mic, his voice steady but laced with awe. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've just been informed that Air Force One has altered its course. We're now under Escort protocol, and it's all because of the man sitting in seat 22C. A collective gasp swept through the cabin. Passengers craned their necks, staring at Daniel, who sat quietly, his hand resting on Lily's. Outside, the windows lit up with the glint of moonlight on metal. The roar of F-22 Raptors thundered through the sky, their sleek forms slicing through the clouds in perfect formation alongside the commercial jet. The sight was breathtaking, humbling, a reminder of power and precision. The woman with the scarf clutched her armrest, her face flushed with shame. The businessman shut his laptop, his mouth slightly open. The flight attendant wiped a tear from her cheek, her smile trembling. Whispers turned to applause, soft at first, then building into a wave that filled the cabin. Passengers who'd rolled their eyes now clapped with reverence, their hands shaking. Some cried openly, moved by the realization that the weary dad in 22C had once defended the very freedom they took for granted. Daniel didn't acknowledge the applause. He didn't need it. He just squeezed Lily's hand as she stirred, her big eyes blinking open. "Daddy," she whispered, her voice sleepy but curious, "are those your friends out there?" She pointed toward the window, where the Raptor's lights flickered like stars brought to Earth. Daniel smiled, a soft, tired smile that held a world of love. "Yeah, sweetheart," he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "They're watching over us, just like I'll always watch over you." For the rest of the flight, no one saw a tired single father. They saw a man who'd traded his wings for a different kind of courage. A man who'd faced loss, who'd carried the weight of grief and responsibility, and still showed up every day for his daughter. They saw sacrifice in his wrinkled jacket, love in his scuffed shoes, and heroism in the quiet way he held Lily's hand. The plane descended smoothly, the Raptors peeling off into the night, their mission complete. As passengers disembarked, they carried with them a story they'd never forget, a reminder that heroes don't always wear capes or uniforms. Sometimes, they sit in seat 22C, looking like they haven't slept in weeks, with a little girl asleep on their shoulder. And if you want to hear more stories like this, tales of unsung heroes and moments that change everything, head over to my YouTube channel, Midnight Tales. Every week, I dive into stories that tug at your heartstrings, spark your imagination, and remind you that the world is full of hidden courage. Subscribe to Midnight Tales, hit that notification bell, and let's uncover the extraordinary in the ordinary together. Because the truth is, you never know who's sitting next to you, or what incredible story they carry.